All right, 6 o'clock, so we're gonna get started. Calling the Wednesday, February 5th, 2025, school committee meeting to order. First up is pledge of allegiance, flag is directed. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The meeting is being recorded by Norton Media. If anyone else is recording, please just let us know. First up on the agenda is the public comment period. You have quite a bit of people in attendance from what we normally have. Anyone got anything? Moving on then. Second on the agenda is vote to approve the minutes from January 22nd. Open session. Has everybody got a chance to review the minutes? Yep. Motion to approve. So.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. I was not here.
Thank you. Next up is the warrants, Ms. Cohen.
So can I read these if I wasn't here last meeting to sign, Jen? Okay. So I reviewed and approved the following warrants: January 22nd, 2025, $548,583.85. School payroll warrants, June 23rd, 2025, $155,264.87. I wish to enter them in the public record.
Thank you. Next up, student rep updates. Benson and Tony.
All right, good evening, everybody. From the A, last week we finished up our 2-week Hey PTO Boosterthon Glow Fun Run fundraiser. The Boosterthon is our Glow Fun Run in the gym where we darken the gym with strobe lights and different colored lights. The kids run their 35 laps around the gym. The kids have an absolute blast running and having the best time with their friends. We are able to raise an unbelievably generous support and help of our #HeyNation community over $24,000, which we are going to be using to continue to pay off our new playground from a couple years ago. Finally, all paid $84,000, and we will use the other money for assemblies, enrichment ideas, 5th grade yearbooks, and other student-centered activities. Because the kids were able to raise above our 20K goal, Mr. Gay and Mr. Blau will be doing something special for the school community. In the past, Mr. G and Mr. B have been taped to the wall, pat in the face, kiss a pig, and exotic animals, including an alligator and kangaroo, jousted as knights, and wore purple slimed last year. These events are all turned into videos and celebrated at the end of the school year. Can't wait to see what this year brings us. The individual classes earn multiple incentives for meeting their in-class goals, which they will most likely be enjoying at the end of this week into next week prior to the vacation, PJ Day, extra tech time, board games, field trips to Honeydew, and more.
And for the middle school, the students of NMS have once again begun work in earnest on the Playbook Initiative. A select group of students composed of students from all 3 grades has begun the important work tasked to the students of the Playbook and the school more broadly of working to make NMS a more inclusive and tolerant place for all students and members of the community. Students involved in Playbook will be traveling to Worcester next week to our partner middle school to conduct a workshop around building skills to combat issues of prejudice and discrimination. The NMS will be holding our annual Spirit Week, sponsored by StuCal, next week prior to the vacation. Spirit Week kicks off with our annual Blacklight Activity Night this Friday from 6 to 8. The boys and girls basketball teams are getting ready to wrap up their seasons next week. The boys team is enjoying their most successful team in the past 20 years, while the girls team is sporting a winning record as well. And finally, the NMS Drama Club has announced their annual production for the spring. This year's production will be Annie. Over 90 students auditioned for roles and the cast has been set. The dates of the show are May 21st, 22nd, and 23rd.
And then lastly, from the LGN, we celebrated Global School Play Day as well as World Read Aloud Day today, February 5th. The students had a lot of fun learning new games and listening to stories old and new. We'll be also celebrating the 100th day of school this Friday. That's all we have for you.
Thank you very much. Next up on the agenda is our Student Spotlight Series for the Norton Middle School Dialogue Divas Book Club.
All right, I'm gonna go stand up at the podium. Please come and join me. I think this is why we actually have this big crowd tonight. This is more people we've seen in this room in quite some time. Thank you. Oh, wonderful. So thank you all for joining us. Morgan, you guys gonna come up?
We were planning on talking.
That's right. Don't be right. All right, so first of all, we asked the middle school, I love the name, by the way, Dialogue Divas, to come and join us tonight to be recognized along with their teacher, Mrs. Del Hall. I'm actually going to read to all of you a little bit about the letter that I got from Mr. Hayward recognizing Mrs. Hall, and now she feels uncomfortable, but I think it's very important.
This is supposed to be a covert operation.
Okay, so it is with great pride and admiration that I write this letter of recommendation for Mrs. Hall, grade 8 math teacher at Norton Middle School. Earlier this fall, following the enthusiasm expressed by several students after the school book fair, because who doesn't love a book fair, right? Mrs. Hall took it upon herself to create and lead a book club for a group of grade 8 girls. This initiative, centered around Louisa May Alcott's timeless novel, Little Women, was entirely driven by their desire to provide an enriching and memorable experience for students who sought an intellectual and social activity beyond their typical classroom experience. So this is something that I find so much fun. Oftentimes, as students get a little bit older, they lose their love of reading, and it's really such a lifelong skill that I love that you guys developed this book club. And so I wanted to invite you all here tonight to recognize Mrs. Hall for creating something that just sounds really, really fun. And I know you guys have something to share, but I guess I'm wondering, are you going to read another book?
Yeah.
All right.
Once a month until the end of the year.
And what is the book you guys are currently reading?
The summer program rules.
Come on. Well, middle schoolers, high school next year. That sounds amazing, but come on up and whoever's coming up.
Charlotte's going first, right?
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. I'm Charlotte, and we are some of the members of the NMS Book Club, also known as the Dialogue Divas. This club started at the book fair a little while ago. Me and Miss Hall and Nora were discussing our love of reading. Miss Hall offered us to stay after school one day with her and read. I decided to take it a step further and suggest that we invite some other members who also love reading to come and read with her. Miss Hall loved the idea, and we started to form our own book club. After I got enough people interested, we held our very first meeting.
At our first meeting, we were really excited to start, and we went over some ground rules, one of them being that we would meet up once a month in the library. At each of our meetings, we would discuss our book and choose the next. We all would pick a name from a hat with a book on it.
I'm Sadie, and then after we selected our first book, which is Little Women, we took some time to read it, and then after a few weeks we met up and discussed it, like our favorite characters, and we also, some of us selected our favorite quotes and then told why they were significant. And then some, like Ms. Hall and some other members, brought some snacks for us to enjoy while we watched the Little Women movie. And then once that was over, we selected our next book.
I'm Nora, and at our most recent meeting, we decided to do we decided to all pick a cookbook and read it. As well as we also read the book The Summer I Turned Pretty. We picked a cookbook and read the cookbook and chose our favorite recipe from the cookbook. And then on the day of the meeting, we all had like a little feast, and we brought in a ton of all the foods that we made, and we shared why we liked the food and why we chose the book. And that's it.
So it's really quick. It is such a joy to really work with these girls because I see them in a different light, very different light than I normally see them. In the math classroom, sometimes they can be very reticent or a little less confident. But boy, once you start talking about their positions on anything, they're very animated, they're very enthusiastic about discussing the books, the characters, the events that they might relate to. And what's really great is to see that even though they're very convinced of their own position, they're very respectful of the other person's position and willing to listen to that and not dig their heels into the ground, being willing to understand the other person's position, even if they don't totally agree with it. And so it's been a great joy to really work with these girls.
So does anyone else want to kind of introduce themselves? So I'm just gonna do So Charlotte, Sadie, Olivia, Nora, Michaela, Violet, Morgan, Isabella, and Kelsey. Congratulations, guys. This is awesome. I think this is the coolest thing I've heard in a very long time. I love that you also did the cookbook and had the feast. That sounds like so much fun. What was the cookbook?
Oh,
We all you chose your own. Oh, that's so fun.
That's
You share what they were?
Yes.
They really had a feast. Okay. Well, I really like to read too. So if you guys are reading a book this spring, I'd love to join
We're going to select our next book and let you know.
you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Anyone?
I love the Student Spotlight series, but I think this one was my favorite one yet. Just kind of seeing this grow, starting with the students, I feel like, and kind of working itself up. And, we all know how technology can affect everybody's lives, phones and iPads and everything else. To kind of go back to earlier times, if you will, I think is an awesome thing. So, super proud, super excited to see how this, club kind of keeps rolling along.
I couldn't love this more. I mean, you guys, well spoken too tonight. It's not easy to get up at your age and talk in front of a group of people, but very well spoken. And like your teacher said, what you girls are learning are life lessons, super important. So, and the only thing I would recommend is maybe inviting us to your feast next, because that sounds amazing. I never would have thought to read a cookbook and do something like that. So awesome job, ladies. Super proud of you.
Nice work. Good.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Number 6 on the agenda, Project 351. We are going to move that to the February 26th agenda. We had a little conflict with getting scheduling squared away. So
You guys don't have to stay for the rest of the You're more than welcome. Thank you all so much. Thank you guys for sharing.
Thank you very much.
And then there were the great.
Frankly, scheduled program.
Mrs. Brown will be right on the door behind you.
All right, so just given that one, we will go to Stormy Brown for our first reading on the concussion policy revision.
I didn't prepare anything. Just myself, Nicole News and Kat Sabady revised the concussion policy from the one from, I think, was it like 2020? Yes. Yeah, and we brought it to the wellness committee and got their opinions on it as well, made some minor changes to what the 3 of us did, and this is what we have. If there's any questions or any.
So I guess mine is, is there, and maybe you know this offhand, if not, like, what's the Cliff Notes version of what's getting changed? Or is it just more language or?
I think it's less language. The
Okay.
last one.
Because I was looking through it, I'm like, okay,
Yeah, the last one was rather repetitive and wordy.
okay, that's what I was kind of going at.
So you guys actually have both copies here. The first, the current concussion policy is first in your packet and next to the title of JJIF, it says current policy in red. As you can see, this one is very cumbersome and as Mrs. Brown noted, very repetitive as well.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes we are working really closely with families and with students and they want to get back to play. And so we're working with them through the process. So this is definitely a streamlined version. It does not change the actual requirements of return to play for students. That's all based on recommendations. However, it's just a little bit more user friendly for families and for us as well.
Now, do you know, Mr. Brown, are we seeing an uptick in concussions? Like,
I don't think
in
so.
general?
No, I think it's kind of status quo. I don't think it's definitely not an increase at all. I
Yeah,
just did
my
our,
concern would just
I
be
just
if
did
we're
our
seeing an
January,
increase,
yeah.
is our policy still effective?
No, I just did our January monthly report and we had 1.
I mean, I sit on the wellness committee and this was a hot topic, if you will. We talked about it for a little while about, trying to do it, obviously. With my career and doing what I do at Bryant, we, definitely switched around some wording and stuff just to make it easier, I think was the key. And then ultimately making it so it's user-friendly to read, but also the students and parents can understand it and understand this. The most important thing returning from a concussion is obviously the stages and how those work, you know, and it, I think just cleans up the language, if you will, for like, making it so pretty easy to understand.
Now, how often do we see new guidelines from like the CDC? Is it just, like, I don't know, like, are we seeing like, because I, like, one thing, some of the sports teams are doing like the Guardian helmets or this like a new technology with like the neck brace. It's like, are we seeing any new guidance or is it just more kind of trial and error with, when it comes to, you know, prevention and things like that? Like, we still have the
I
same
don't think
prevention
there's really
guidelines.
been any new guidance from the CDC in several years. Like I said, we just kind of followed mass law and use what has worked for us in the past.
And the graduated return to play, that's all overseen and consistent from district to district, school to school.
So
etc.
is the final say a doctor or our nursing staff and trainers? Like,
It's
ultimately-
usually the doctor. It just gets tough when the kids don't go back to the doctor. So then it's more left up to the trainer and the nursing department. More the trainer, because especially unless it's a kid that it was like a car accident or something, you know, not an athlete, then it's more up to the nurse if the kid doesn't get back to the doctor.
So with all policies, we do them as two reads. So this is our initial read. So if the committee has any questions about specific language or would like to see language adapted, this is the time for us to have that conversation. Otherwise, we would bring it back to you for a second read and a vote.
Anything else from the committee? All good, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can leave now too. Next up is the meal charge policy, Christine Hatfield.
So this is very similar. It is just an update from a older meal charge policy. The current one that you have in front of, I think the new one is from 2017. And so this revised one is for new guidelines and procedures. And we've updated a bunch of language pretty much to reflect the new guidelines that are going on right now in the state and the also, sorry, including the universal free meals as well. I'll just do a super quick outline of it just because there's a lot more in this one. The very first section is almost identical to the old. It's pretty much just the district's philosophy. It's very standard. Almost every district has the same one. The next is new. We added key terms, and we thought this might be helpful because with the universal free lunch and breakfast, it gets a little confusing as to what's reimbursable, what's not reimbursable, a la carte items, charged student accounts. And so after doing a lot of research and reviewing different districts, we saw this in a couple and we thought it would be extremely helpful, especially when parents call and ask numerous questions on the new rates and their balances and whatnot. So the next section with the student accounts, we added the universal free meals that's going on right now, where the state pays for the portion of the one free breakfast and one free lunch. And also we added in this new section, which it seems a little confusing and a little contradictory, but it is also just in case, perhaps hoping not, but someday they are no longer free. This keeps it clear. It was partially in the old policy and it just explains what our procedures are for students with free and reduced lunch versus students with full paid meals and what each of those means. The next section, we literally just combined language for the payment and low balances, just cleaned it up a little bit. And that also goes for the refund and delinquent account collection. The major purpose of the meal charge policy is just how does the district go about collecting the money, making sure that it's never in the school lunch account as a whole is not in debt, and what do we do about that if it was? So that's why it needs the different subcategories as well. And lastly, we decided to add the financial assistance, because that does come up a lot. If at the end of graduation, they have a low, they have a negative balance, and also to let families know that we will never deny a student lunch or breakfast with the inability to pay. And also, we also always have donations accounts and different things like that. And the last new item is the non-discrimination statement, which I believe we already have on our website, but we have to include in our meal charge policy as well.
I like the unlimited fresh fruits and vegetables. For anyone still out there.
What, I guess I should probably know this, but so when the state allows for a free breakfast and a free lunch to every single student, how do we pay for that up front and then we get reimbursed, or is it factored in as like what they do?
So we pay for, it's not per meal, it's more just for the supply, so to speak. So we get federal revenue for if a student is classified as free, we get that from federal revenue. What the state now offsets, that they start for permanently free, is a paid meal. So if a student is on paid meal status, that is also free at the same rate as a free student would be that we receive from federal revenue. And they also get the offset of the reduced meal revenue meal student as well. Does that make sense? I know, it really is.
Sure.
So
All those words make sense.
So I guess then, when we pay or truck rolls, whatever,
Yeah.
how does it, like, does the state cut them a check, or does it come through us, then we?
So we have to put in a claim each month, and what we do is the food service director and I go over every single meal account for breakfast and lunch for each school. We enter it online with DESI, and then they reimburse us based on the calculation.
Perfect. And then, Jen, you're not gonna like this, but is this something else that DESI does, that they say, we're gonna do 100% and then give us 70?
Not at this time.
Thank you.
So right now they are fully reimbursing schools because of this free lunch program since COVID.
Perfect, that's it, yeah, obviously, in terms of when they started this thing. And then, I guess from a policy standpoint, is the reason kind of why we're doing this, because it kind of seems like everything's kind of current, but then is it because of all the universal free lunch? I guess I kind of, why change the policy now?
I think because it's approaching 10 years of being an old policy, and yes, because of the pandemic, and the new language of reimbursable meals and still charging for that second meal, especially mostly at the high school level. It's just good to have an updated policy.
So while students are guaranteed the free breakfast and free lunch, other items are not necessarily free. So for example, ice cream Fridays, or students that want a whole second lunch, we charge them for that. And so oftentimes we get phone calls from parents and say, why is my meal account, why do I owe you $150? And it's because your child eats 2 lunches every single day and only one of them is free. So putting things like this into the policy really help when we're having those types of conversations with families as well. That's not me that has those, that Christine's the lucky girl in that regard. But it definitely helps us to have those things in writing. And then as she mentioned as well, the USDA non-discrimination statement is a requirement of our policy as well.
Perfect. Makes sense?
Yeah.
All good?
So again, this is a first read. If you guys have anything that you have questions on or would like us to update, please let us know.
Thank you. Next is the second reading on the entrance age policy revision, Dr.
Okay, so for us, this is the second reading, which means tonight we will vote on this entrance age. And as we discussed at our last meeting, this policy JEB actually is an attempt to reinstate language that was inadvertently taken out in the last revision. So We added number 3 back in, I believe, 2018, and unfortunately at that same time lost numbers 1 and 2, which gave us the initial entrance rate age for kindergartners, but also number 2, which talks about the initial admission of children in first grade. There are times where we have families that their child doesn't meet the kindergarten cutoff, and therefore they may enroll in a private kindergarten for that year. This helps us to have a clear policy in terms of what that would look like for a child entering grade 1.
Do we have to, or 1, do we have a policy, and 2, does it have to be separate for the preschool program? Or is there an age?
No, because preschool is, you know, it's 3 years old for students that are part of Child Find that are coming to get their specialized services, and then the peer models are 3 as well. And it's not a required grade level for us, so it's a voluntary program.
And I know someone said this probably last meeting. So if a student hypothetically comes from, they did kindergarten in Bourne, but they were born November 1st. So they come from Bourne, they're born November 1st, so they started and finished kindergarten, turned 5 after August 31st, come to Norton. How does that work?
So what we would do is, number 1, we would look at their kindergarten report card, narrative, whatever they have from their previously sending school, to kind of take a look at how they did. We would sit down with the parents, have some conversations about their child, and then we would give them a series of assessments to kind of see if we believe that they are ready for kindergarten. I think the academic expectations are challenging now. It's very different than many years ago when I was in kindergarten, and you basically had to play nicely with friends and use scissors. Not at the same time. But so we would do that, and we would have a lot of conversations just about the developmental appropriateness as well.
Well, I guess from the parent, we would have a meeting and there would be a potential that student would be able to go on to grade 1.
Yes, and the district's decision is the final decision.
For sure. Okay. Any other questions from the committee? So now we can take a vote, correct? I will entertain a motion of approval.
So.
Second.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0 majority.
Thank you.
All right, and then I believe, sorry, then yes, last but not least, superintendent goals and mid-year update.
All right, so I think we did this a little bit earlier last year, so I apologize that it's already February and I'm giving my mid-year update. So quickly, I have a few goals for this upcoming year. The first one is that in partnership with the school community to develop a comprehensive strategic plan that establishes a blueprint for success of all Norton students. And as I humbly admitted in my narrative to you, this one's a little off target. I unfortunately am a little bit behind schedule on this particular goal. I've begun the internal process of creating a system and structure for this work. Families will be invited to participate in the strategic planning committee this coming Friday as part of my newsletter. And they will be asked a few simple questions just about what they believe we're doing well as a school community and what are some areas that we need to work on. Students in 6 through 12 will be getting an email from Dr. O'Neill on Monday, asking those 3 important questions that I asked them all last year. Do you feel safe at school? Do you feel welcome and respected for who you are? And do you have an adult at school that you feel that you could go to if you had a problem? And asking students in middle school and high school those 3 questions is really eye-opening, and it was really interesting to see that information and data last year. So I'm hoping that we'll get the same response rate from our students. Finally, we will be sending out a similar survey for elementary students that will be a little bit more student-friendly, including pictures and images, and then family and staff surveys regarding our vision, mission, and goals, as well as our portrait of a graduate, will be shared the Monday following February break. So this completed plan, I can share. Actually, there is the internal process, but you guys obviously can't click on that little link. I will share that with you as part of my Friday memo this week. And the whole plan is lined out to have it to you in early June. So number one, I appreciate your grace and understanding that this is a little bit behind schedule at this time. But we will get that done into you as soon as possible. The second goal was my student learning goal, which talks about using a district-wide data review process that will include local curriculum-based measures, observations of teaching and learning, norm data, and state assessments to take a look at individualized student action plans that will partner with our IMTS efforts to focus on student learning and attendance. This has been kind of a fun one. I have been able to visit schools and classrooms with our principals throughout the course of the month, each month in a variety of ways. Dr. Ackerman and I have also started learning walks in partnership with some of our building principals. During these walks, we focus specifically on particular grade levels, instructional purchase and curriculum alignment. One of the best things that we've done so far this year is we split a day between JCS and LGN. And what we did is we went and we visited kindergarten classrooms at LGN and kindergarten classrooms at JCS and third grade classrooms. And it was so interesting to see the parts of the day that were so in line with each other and the ways that they were different too. And so it actually has allowed us to have some really interesting conversations in terms of what are we seeing that's working really well? How do we streamline our expectations of all students? And do the teachers have the resources and materials that they need in order to effectively instruct? And so we'll continue to do that. And then the other thing that I can't take credit for this, but Dr. Ackerman and Mrs. Russo have been doing are these really great transition meetings where we're getting teachers together, pre-K and kindergarten. What do expectations look like once they leave Little Lancers preschool and go into the kindergarten classroom? And how can the preschool teachers help to prepare them for those expectations? And they'll be doing that as well this year in third and fourth grade and fifth and sixth, and then also between Norton Middle School and Norton High School. We are doing a lot of data work this year. It's becoming increasingly prevalent in all of our leadership meetings and within the grade levels and department teams. Teachers explore how students are performing on critical grade level skills, and then they take a look at how they can provide interventions during that scheduled time. Beginning next year, all 5 buildings will have an intervention block built into their daily schedule, which will allow students the opportunity to access both intervention and enrichment in their classrooms. One of the places that we've seen the best change this year is at Norton High School during the LLB block. This gives students, and there's so many different things that happen during LLB, and I've got 2 high school students here that can maybe speak to it if they felt so inclined. But it's giving students the opportunity. So maybe if they miss school because they were out sick or they're having a difficult time, they're able to go and connect with a teacher during that time, or maybe even connect with a peer or members of one of our honor societies for some tutoring and reteaching. And it's built within the structure of every school day. So it's something that all students can access, whether they're on an IEP or not. And then also it gives it a great opportunity for some of our clubs and activities to get together during that time. For example, Best Buddies often does a lot of stuff during the day with during the LLB block. We have also, as you guys know, been implementing some new curriculum programs in K-8, which is really helping to provide that structure and high quality resource for our teachers. So making sure that they are aligned and following the program with fidelity. And then one of the things that I think we can do a little bit better on is taking that student level data and sharing it more widely. Teachers that are engaged with those students are constantly looking at student data. And my goal with, of course, with privacy expectations is that we're able to share it with a larger staff and wider community to show progress that is being made across our IMTS model. We have a lot of really great success stories of kids that are making great progress because of the way that our teachers are going above and beyond for them, and because of a lot of the work that we've been doing over these last few years. I would love to be able to showcase some of that in a way that protects the privacy of our students, but also can celebrate the great work that's happening. And then finally, my third goal is that new superintendent induction program. I actually had one this morning. So I've been to 5 out of 6 NIST meetings so far this year. They're a mixture of virtual and in person. They've been a really, really great resource for me. Today's topic was how do I help build principals as instructional leaders? Because as a superintendent, I can't be in every classroom every day. And so it was a very timely topic and conversation based on the work that we're doing. I believe you guys have all met Dr. Wong as well. We meet virtually twice a month, and you know, during some of the crazy things that have happened so far this year, she's a quick text or phone call away. So I'm very fortunate to have her as well. Last year, we tried to get my evaluation done prior to school committee elections, so I will defer to all of you on how you would like to do that this year. But if there's additional information that you are looking for or would like to see other examples, please let me know and I'd be happy to provide them.
I mean, I think it's important to, you know, similar to last year and not previous years, but I think it's best to probably do it before spring election, because especially this year, there's potential turnover. But you know, because it happened to me when I was elected, I'm like, I have nothing. So because at that point I'm like, yeah, everything's great. I don't know. So I think it's just that timeline needs to stick to, you know, March or I don't even know, when's the election, end of April.
Usually end of April.
So I mean, I think it's definitely, you know, in that earlier spring timeframe, just to.
Yeah, I mean,
that's the best way to evaluate is your current
correct.
team.
Yeah, I think definitely has to be, I mean, whatever you're gonna say at the end of April, you're probably gonna say at the end of June. So to me, it would just make sense that we continue that process, especially with the potential of losing 3 members in one cycle here, that it would make no sense to have 3 new members potentially on this and then have only 2 people evaluating. So
Yeah, because it wouldn't be a great evaluation for somebody new to come in and say, oh yeah, everything.
No. Like I
Say
remember,
on here.
I abstained from the one when we got on.
You also have.
So it makes no sense. Yeah, so I could obviously continue.
Sounds good.
Any other questions, concerns, comments? Cool. Good to go there. That is it. Other business not anticipated in 48 hours. And we have pretty good timing there. All right, and that will do it. Thank you very much. Have a great evening. Oh, sorry, motion to adjourn. I hope something.
All those.
All those in favor? Thanks.